All right. A little late as usual.
Sysmon, a tool used to monitor and log events on Windows, is commonly used by enterprises as part of their monitoring and logging solutions. Part of the Windows sysinternals package, Sysmon is similar to Windows event logs with further detail and granular control.
Do I have Sysmon? Do I have that somewhere? And I'll learn how to use it if I quit bullshitting. Oh, there it is. I know I had it. Blue and ice boxes. I did this before, didn't I? I don't remember doing the ice one.
One for now. However, we're up.
Read all of this?
Sysmon overview from the Microsoft Docs. System Monitor. Sysmon is a Windows system service and device driver that, once installed on a system, remains resident across system reboots to monitor and log system activity to the Windows event log. It provides detailed information about process creations, network connections, and changes to file creation time. By collecting the events it generates using Windows Event Collection or SIEM agents and subsequently analyzing them, you can identify malicious or anomalous activity and understand how intruders and malware operate on your network. Sysmon gathers detailed and high-quality logs as well as event tracing that assists in identifying anomalies in your environment. Sysmon is most commonly used in conjunction with Security Information and Event Management (SIEM) system or other log parsing solutions that aggregate, filter, and visualize events. When installed on an endpoint, Sysmon will start early in the Windows boot process. In an ideal scenario, the events would be forwarded to a SIEM for further analysis. However, in this room, we will focus on Sysmon itself and view the events on the endpoint itself with Windows Event Viewer. Events within Sysmon are stored in Applications and Services log /Microsoft /Windows /Sysmon /Operational Sysmon config overview. Sysmon requires a config file in order to tell the binary how to analyze the events that it is receiving. You can create your own Sysmon config or you can download
Cisco. You been Microsoft? Sysmon, what up, dude? Sysmon, where the fuck Sysmon? Oh, right there. Man, I got a bunch of logs. I just installed this fucking 1 minute ago. Only like 5 minutes ago, and it's already got a bunch of logs. Create rule. What rule did it just create? Why is it creating rules? Fucking, you keep coming over my fucking house and shit. I've been trying to study, but I'm just only started like an hour ago. It's already fucking almost time for bed. Thought my babysitter. I had to find it. I was 2 hours late for work because I thought my babysitter died. I don't know. She's in the hospital now, I guess. She went and answered the door for hours, and eventually the neighbors broke in her house and found her on the floor. So I got a babysitter for a while. I don't know. Let me understand this. Command line is doing something with Chrome. It's putting logs in with Chrome. Process terminated. Let's see host. Yeah, that's normal. MMC. What is MMC again? It created MMC process. Oh, that's event viewer. What is MMC? I forgot what the fuck it is. That's event viewer, right? Management. Yeah, it's. Yeah, it's like event viewer and task manager. Huh. Alright.
A config. Here is an example of a high-quality config that works well for identifying anomalies created by Swift and Security, Sysmon config. Sysmon includes 29 different types of event.
What's the config? Command line. This is Windows 10. Well, that's a good little config file. How do I incorporate? God damn, that's a bunch of shit.
IDs, all of which can be used within the config to specify how the events should be handled and analyzed. Below we will go over a few of the most important event IDs and show examples of how they are used within config files. When creating or modifying configuration files, you will notice that a majority of rules in Sysmon config will exclude events rather than include events. This will help filter out normal activity in your environment that will in turn decrease the number of events and alerts you will have to manually audit or search through in a scene.
Oh, that's what's doing.
On the other hand, there are rule sets like the Ion Storm Sysmon config fork that takes a more proactive approach with its rule set.
Well, I want that then. I want to do download. So I need to uninstall it real quick. Did I run it as administrator? I don't think I did. There we go. Done. So now let's go event viewer. I got the default in there. So now it should be way less of a log.
By using a lot. When creating or modifying configuration files, you will notice that a majority of rules in Sysmon config will exclude events rather than include events. This will help filter out normal activity in your environment that will in turn decrease the number of events and alerts you will have to manually audit or search through in a scene. On the other hand, there are rule sets like the IonStorm Sysmon config fork that takes a more proactive approach with its rule set by using a lot of include rules. You may have to modify configuration files to find what approach you prefer. Configuration preferences will vary depending on what SOC team, so prepare to be flexible when monitoring. Note, as there are so many event IDs Sysmon analyzes, we will only be going over a few of the ones that we think are most important to understand.
It is a huge fucking... Include...
Event ID 1, Process Creation. This event will look for any processes that have been created. You can use this to look for known suspicious processes or processes with typos that would be considered an anomaly. This event will use the command line and image XML tags.
I might want to exclude Chrome. Looks like Chrome does a lot of bullshit. No, it's just going to my router. It's all Chrome. wonder if I should exclude Chrome. Probably shouldn't, because there might be shit using Chrome.
The above code snippet is specifying the event ID to pull from as well as what condition to look for. In this case, it is excluding the sfcost.exe process from the event logs. Event ID 3, Network Connection. The network connection event will look for events that occur remotely. This will include files and sources of suspicious binaries as well as open ports. This event will use the image and destination port XML tags. The above code snippet includes two ways to identify suspicious network connection activity. The first way will identify files transmitted over open ports. In this case, we are specifically looking for nmap.exe, which will then be reflected within the event logs. The second method identifies open ports and specifically port 4444, which is commonly used with Metasploit. If the condition is met, an event will be created and ideally trigger an alert for the SOC to further investigate. Event ID 7, image loaded. This event will look for DLLs loaded by processes, which is useful when hunting for DLL injection and DLL hijacking attacks. It is recommended to exercise caution when using this event ID as it causes a high system load. This event will use the image, signed, image loaded, and signature XML tags. Rule group name equals group relation equals or. The above code snippet will look for any DLLs that have been loaded within the /temp/ directory. If a DLL is loaded within this directory, it can be considered an anomaly and should be further investigated. Event ID 8, create remote thread. The create remote thread event ID will monitor for processes injecting code into other processes. The create remote thread function is used for legitimate tasks and applications. However, it could be used by malware to hide malicious activity. This event will use the source image, target image, start address, and start function XML tags. The above code snippet shows two ways of monitoring for create remote thread. The first method will look at the memory address for a specific ending condition, which could be an indicator of a cobalt strike beacon. The second method will look for injected processes that do not have a parent process. This should be considered an anomaly and require further investigation.
The memory address, okay.
Event ID 11, file created. This event ID will log events when files are created or overwritten the endpoint. This could be used to identify file names and signatures of files that are written to disk. This event uses target file name XML tags.
So I'm looking for contains help to save files.
Event ID 12/13/14, registry event. This event looks for changes or modifications to the registry. Malicious activity from the registry can include persistence and credential abuse. This event uses target object XML tags.
We'll find that real quick. I want to find. Is it a page? I think it's a page. Well, that's why I couldn't find nothing. I want to see who's in here. see him anywhere around here. I want to find him. He said he's on here, so I want to find his ass. Nope, I see him all in there. Found great stream has.
Event ID 22, DNS event. This event will log all DNS queries and events for analysis. The most common way to deal with these events is to exclude all trusted domains that you know will be very common noise in your environment. Once you get rid of the noise, you can then look for DNS anomalies. This event uses query name XML tags. The above code snippet will exclude any DNS events with the .microsoft.com query. This will get rid of the noise that you see within the environment. There are a variety of ways and tags that you can use to customize your configuration files. We will be using the IonStorm and Swiften security config files for the rest of this room. However, feel free to use your own configuration files.
These are all Chrome. Should I exclude Chrome on Sysmon? Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought I shouldn't get rid of it, but god damn, it's a lot of noise. Jesus, I mean, look at that. 1,000 events already. It's all Chrome. Ball squeaking snaps.
The installation for Sysmon is fairly straightforward and only requires downloading the binary from the Microsoft website. You can also download all of the sysinternals tools with the PowerShell command if you wanted to rather than grabbing a single binary. It is also recommended to use a Sysmon config file along with Sysmon to get more detailed and high-quality event tracing. As an example config file, we will be using the Sysmon config file from the Swift and Security GitHub repo. You can find the Sysmon binary from the Microsoft sysinternals website. You can also download the Microsoft sysinternals suite or use the below command to run a PowerShell module download and install all of the sysinternals tools. PowerShell command, download sysinternals tool C:.
I don't have internet.
To fully utilize Sysmon, you will also need to download a Sysmon config or create your own config. We suggest downloading the Swift and Security Sysmon config. A Sysmon config will allow for further granular control over the logs as well as more detailed event tracing. In this room, we will be using both the Swift and Security configuration file as well as the IonStorm config file.
I can't get rid of that fucking smell of my nose. Well, can I use? I have a microphone. Why is it so hard to get the vinegar smell of mustard off my finger? Huh. This fucking thing. There we go. I had to do all that shit.
Now that Sysmon is started with the configuration file we want to use, we can look at the event viewer to monitor events. The event log is located under Applications and Services log /Microsoft/Windows/Sysmon/operational node. At any time you can change the configuration file used by uninstalling or updating the current configuration and replacing it with a new configuration file. For more information, look through the Sysmon help menu. If installed correctly, your event log should look similar to the following.
What was the download file? Oh, this actually did something. No, still a bunch of fucking.
Since most of the normal activity or noise seen on a network is excluded or filtered out with Sysmon, we're able to focus on meaningful events. This allows us to quickly identify and investigate suspicious activity. When actively monitoring a network, you will want to use multiple detections and techniques simultaneously in an effort to identify threats. For this room, we will only be looking at what suspicious logs will look like with both Sysmon configs and how to optimize your hunt using only Sysmon. We will be looking at how to detect ransomware, persistence, mimikatz, metasploit, and command and control, C2, beacons. Obviously, this is only showcasing a small handful of events that could be triggered in an environment. The methodology will largely be the same for other threats. It really comes down to using an ample and efficient configuration file, as it can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. You can either
No. No, I forgot. Does my network get that? I think it does VLANs, of course. It does. I'm gonna figure out how to set up VLANs.
Sysmon Best Practices. Sysmon offers a fairly open and configurable platform for you to use. Generally speaking, there are a few best practices that you could implement to ensure you're operating efficiently and not missing any potential threats. A few common best
There was cats on my porch the whole time. Cats are so cute. I fucking love cats, dog. Oh, I'm so sore still.
practices are outlined and explained below. Include when creating rules for your Sysmon configuration file. It is typically best to prioritize excluding events rather than including events. This prevents you from accidentally missing crucial events and only seeing the events that matter the most. CLI gives you further control. As is common with most applications, the CLI gives you the most control and filtering, allowing for further granular control. You can use either getWine event or wevutil.exe to access and filter logs. As you incorporate Sysmon into your scene or other detection solutions, these tools will become less used and needed. Know your environment before implementation. Knowing your environment is important when implementing any platform or tool. You should have a firm understanding of the network or environment you are working within to fully understand what is normal and what is suspicious in order to effectively craft your rules. Filtering events with Event Viewer. Event Viewer might not be the best for filtering events and out of the box offers limited control over logs.
What the fuck?
Knowing your environment is important when implementing any platform or tool. You should have a firm understanding of the network or environment you are working within to fully understand what is normal and what is suspicious in order to effectively craft your rules. Filtering events with Event Viewer. Event Viewer might not be the best for filtering events and out of the box offers limited control over logs.
Oh, what's it going so fast?
The main filter you will be using with Event Viewer is by filtering the event ID and keywords.
Oh, it says it too. I can't comprehend. A damn cat.
To view and filter events with PowerShell, we will be using getWine event along with XPath queries. We can use any XPath queries that can be found in the XML view of events. We will be using weviewdal.exe to view events once filtered. The command line is typically used over the Event Viewer GUI as it allows for further granular control and filtering, whereas the GUI does not. For more information about using getWine event and weviewdal.exe, check out the Windows event log room.
That's what I'm in.
For this room, we will only be going over a few basic filters, as the Windows event log room already extensively covers this too.
I hate using the PowerShell. I got 76,260. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to do it, event ID 3. How's that not right? That's literally what it's telling me. $76,260. That's not right. How is that not right? Whatever. What's the wrong one I'm looking for? Filtering the EV. What was it? Fuck, I need to number line it. Fuck, man. How to number line in PowerShell. There's no hint. We'll do a number line first. What the fuck? I mean, that's what I got. Seven 73591. How do I even get that? 735. That's not what I got though. So I know that's fucking right. How is it not? I don't know.
Metasploit is a commonly used exploit framework for penetration testing and red team operations. Metasploit can be used to easily run exploits on a machine and connect back to a MeterPreter shell. We will be hunting the MeterPreter shell itself and the functionality it uses. To begin hunting, we will look for network connections that originate from suspicious ports such as 4400.
I'm finally halfway through. Day 101. It says I'm a wizard.
And 44 and 5555. By default, Metasploit uses port 4444. If there is a connection to any IP known or unknown, it should be investigated. To start an
It's fucking late, dude.